Hello, MCU fans. Today we're going to look at some new hints about Wakanda Forever's potential timeline placement. Now, the movie's going to be out in just over a week, and I can't wait to see it. I mean, it is going to be an emotionally powerful and at times emotionally difficult movie, but it's also just going to be awesome. I mean, I have heard nothing but fantastic reviews from all the pre-reviewers. They've given it, a thumbs up. Absolutely love it. So can't wait. So anyway, let's dive right in and look at these new hints about Wakanda Forever's potential timeline placement. So Ryan Coogler, the writer and director, gave a quote in Cinema Blend just recently about some of the character motivations. He said, something Robert Cole and I had to sit down and talk with producer Nate Moore about was just kind of establishing like the backstory, because we needed to know it for ourselves, but also our actors are very serious about their craft. That's going to be the first thing they ask when they show up, like, all right, what's been happening? Where am I at? So he went on to say, we decided that after T'Challa and Shuri were snapped away, while Thanos and the damage that happened in the invasion of Wakanda by Thanos' army, that the vacant seat left on the throne was occupied by Ramonda. And that decision went a long way. It led to the conflict between Ramonda and Nakia, causing Nakia to leave. So that decision right there started to inform more. So a lot of interesting things we learned there. I've always wondered if the quote where Ramonda is saying, I've lost everything, referring to her family, if that was during the blip when T'Challa and Shuri were gone. So we may see some flashbacks to the blip. But at least this is saying for certain that Ramonda is going to take over and that created a conflict between her and Nakia. So, very interesting. Then we've also learned in a recent press release that Ramonda realizes that it's been a year since T'Challa's passing and Shuri is still not healing. She's not taking steps to move forward in a healthy way. They take a retreat, stepping away from the city, from the technology, to sit with no distractions and perform what is essentially a grief ritual. That's when Namor shows up. So this tells us that the movie is taking place at least a year after Endgame, because obviously T'Challa showed up in the final battle in Endgame. So with Endgame being in October 2023, this means the movie is at least October of 2024, if not later. So that's interesting to learn. Okay, then we get some really specific information from Nate Moore, producer Nate Moore, who was mentioned earlier, when he's asked, what year does the movie take place? And are you really surprised that we don't get a very good answer? I don't understand why these guys keep showing up at interviews almost surprised they're asked this question. But nonetheless, his answer is, oh boy, in terms of years, I couldn't tell you. I could tell you where it sits in the other movies because I would try to do it somewhat chronologically. But if you ask me, if you held a gun to my head, honestly, I probably wouldn't get it wrong. Or I probably would get it wrong. I'm beginning to think this is intentional. And I say that to mean we know there's a timeline keeper. We know that they know what year this is happening. There's no way he doesn't know that. He's a high-level producer at Marvel. I think that they don't want to give publicly the year the movies take place. And the reason is because I think the general public has no idea these movies are taking place in 2024, 2025, maybe by Quantumania's time it comes out, 2026. That's just going to confuse the general public. They'll be like, huh? They don't care about timelines, well, like we do. So I am wondering if this is intentional, that they refuse to answer the year when things happen. Oh, they'll talk about where things happen in relation to each other, but they won't give out the year, because this is just silly at this point. He can't possibly have not thought he was going to be asked, what year does this movie take place? So just a theory of mine. But anyway, he does give a good answer when asked, well, when does it take place in relation to other movies? He says, oh, yeah, look, if you think about it, the movie clearly happens after No Way Home and Eternals. I think it probably happens potentially concurrent with Thor Love and Thunder. New Asgard does exist in our universe, for instance, or in our film, and almost concurrent with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which is coming out in February. So you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense that he has no clue what year it's happening, but he knows that it happens after No Way Home and Eternals, around the same time as Thor Love and Thunder, and almost concurrently with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. It's interesting. But so, okay, let's look a little bit more about this No Way Home and Eternals quote, because I have long believed that Eternals is in 2024, not 2023, even though I know there's many indications that it's right after Endgame. But notice how he kind of throws it in with No Way Home when he's discussing it. If we look at a quote he said earlier, a couple years ago about Eternals, he said it happens right around the same time as Spider-Man Far From Home, when the world is recovering from the attack on Thanos and the return of half the world population. So he's really being consistent in this view that Eternals is later in the timeline than late 2023. That it's more around the time frame of No Way Home and Far From Home. So then also keep in mind, he's saying that Wakanda Forever is concurrent with Love and Thunder and a little bit before Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So if we look at the timeline that I put together in an earlier video that looks kind of like a circuit board, but it just shows the flow between all these different movies. Notice he says it's after Eternals and No Way Home, which that works because those are both mid to late 2024. He says it's around the same time as Thor: Love and Thunder, practically concurrently, he says. So, okay, that's going to be later in the timeline. Therefore, and it's before Quantumania. So therefore, I'm thinking it's going to be a November of 2025 timeframe. We'll learn more on the exact month when we see the movie, and maybe there'll be some hints to help us along on that. But everything he said seems to lead to a November of 2025 placement. So if we look at it on a monthly breakdown, more like you'd see on Disney Plus, of course, Disney Plus doesn't have the months and the years. I understand that. But this looks more like if you look at the timeline on Disney Plus, then you can see how it would all fit here. And if you're interested in where I got these months and years, I break those down in other videos. I'll place a link in the comments that you can go and watch a more thorough video on that if you're interested. But so for now, it looks like November of 2025 is where I'm going to place things. Okay, so now we await the arrival of Wakanda Forever. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. Hope you all get to see it opening weekend, and I will get a timeline video out as well as maybe some Easter eggs that I found interesting pretty quickly after it releases. So I'm going to go see it on the Saturday of that first weekend. So in the meantime, if you don't mind, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, check out some more content, and we can all continue to enjoy the ever-expanding, ever-growing Marvel Cinematic Universe.